Hello and welcome back to a Chakras and Cusswords podcast. My name is Katherine and I am your host. Today we are going to talk about Mercury Retrograde, bitch. And I've talked about Mercury Retrograde before, but I decided to really get into the area of Mercury Retrograde for this Mercury Retrograde occurring in 2025, because it is like our first Mercury Retrograde of 2025. And also, the energy of this Mercury retrograde has so much movement. And I'm going to say you're going to want to collect your pearls, grab your panties, don't get them in a bunch, and just kind of take this Mercury retrograde as what it is. I mean, it's Mercury retrograde. It happens every, 3 to 4 times a year. It's nothing new. We've lived through so many Mercury retrogrades that this Mercury retrograde shouldn't affect us that much. I mean, should it? I hope not. And I know I usually don't talk about Mercury retrogrades like this, and I usually don't do full episodes on a retrograde, but I was like, why not? We're in the year of 9. We just had the blood lunar eclipse, and it's literally the day that Mercury retrograde is occurring. So Mercury retrograde in Aries of 2025 is going to cause a little bit of an uproar. It's a fiery transit. It really is. It's like bold, it's magical, and it brings all that energy that Mercury retrogrades usually do, which means the usual miscommunication. We expect Twitter to definitely go down, or X, whatever it is that you want to call it. All of the social media platforms tend to have some kind of mishap during Mercury retrogrades, and Elon Musk has really just not been having the time of his life, as so many hackers have been fucking with him. It's kind of bringing a little joy to my heart just to see somebody who's so seen as, I guess you could say, a technical influence really kind of having some obstacles. Also, we're going to see some travel delays like we haven't seen them already, but just definitely there is going to be a little bit of a more fiery approach to it. So it kind of makes me a little bit nervous, and it also makes me feel that this energy is going to be a little bit more impulsive than some of the Mercury retrogrades of the past. So Mercury retrograde is occurring today, March 14th of 2025, and it should go on until about April 7th of 2025. And it is in the sign of Aries. And Aries is spontaneous. It's about action. It's about independence. It is about the energy of expecting new things around a interpersonal, but also a big center space. And we could expect people to get frustrated, also people to really feel like their personal intentions or initiations might be feeling some complications. Yikes. We're also going to see some energy around leadership and also initiatives. And what's interesting is right before Mercury retrograde, we did definitely see some areas with travel. I just saw that Southwest was saying they're now going to charge their bags, and American Airlines, their plane caught on fire and 174 passengers had to exit out of the wing of the plane. So there's definitely has already been some complications going around that feel very impulsive and fiery. But I do think that this Mercury retrograde is going to make it one little tad up a notch. And I would say if you are somebody who is making big decisions during this time, you're really going to want to kind of think about it and definitely look to not rush. We don't want to rush too much, right? So the key themes and the key momentums of retrogrades, and of course, this Mercury retrograde in Aries, is to really make sure that the energy in rushed decisions can backfire. And it does urge us to kind of review the process, and especially when it is happening in internal spaces. Also, we're going to be wanting to look at some of the decisions that we make that not only affect us as an individual, but also affect the collective in a long whole. But mostly it's centered around, does this decision feel quite right? or does it feel a little bit misleading? And that's something that we're really going to want to look at during this Mercury retrograde. I also think that there is going to be some energy around frustration and also communication, as the Aries is very direct and very blunt. Like, the Aries is a fire element, so there is a lot of solar plex chakra energy that the Mercury retrograde might kind of make a little bit more aggressive and also a little bit more assertive, which could lead to many of us feeling misunderstood or also feeling like there's complications in our areas of communication and also in our relationships. And since it is around Aries, some of us will be taking this identity to a whole new energy, right? We'll be like, oh no, I knew I shouldn't have did that. And it's not that we made a mistake that we can't repair. It's just, it's Mercury retrograde and shit like this happens. So definitely look at your chart, see where it is that Mercury lies, and also see where it is that Aries lies. You're going to want to look at the movement of your traditional Mercury sign, but also you're going to want to look at where is Aries in your chart. Is it in your first house? Ooh, is it in your second house? Is it in your third house? Where is Aries at? Because that is where the transitioning Mercury retrograde is literally hitting you the most. And of course, when we are looking at areas of technology, travel, we are expected to see some energies that can really fall into certain spaces, as Aries does rule the head. So I would think that a lot of us will be feeling a little bit frustrated and also might be experiencing like headaches, migraines, or just maybe some complications too. And what's interesting is like, it makes us really think about certain situations, and that can occur in some ways as a benefit, because usually when we aren't feeling well, we're not too rash on making decisions. We're usually pretty centered, where we take a little bit more of a slower pace, like Mercury is doing, and double checking so we avoid some impulsive situations. Also, I will say that I do think that a lot of past conflicts will come back up. So if you haven't been getting along with a certain person, or if there's kind of been like some unresolved issues, maybe some unresolved frustration, some energy around old arguments, or maybe even like a competitor. And since Mercury retrograde in Aries, we have to remember that the Aries is really, I want to say, it has a little bit of like a selfish side to it. But that area of like being number one, that competitive mode might kind of like check back in. So look to see if any of your old ops or old competition might be trying to, I guess you could say, roll back into certain situations that they don't belong to. Also, with Mercury retrograde in Aries, we have to remember that since there is so much energy around identity, the Aries might feel either two types of energy. It might feel very self-asserted, where it wants to get up, do new things, where the Aries might also feel like very down on themselves, kind of down on who it is that they are. And they might really like rethink certain situations that they normally would do with full movement and full intentions. And they might be feeling a little bit not so aligned with their goals, while with others, they might be feeling very persistent with their goals. So make sure you check your chart and see where this is occurring. So Mercury retrograde is occurring today. It's starting off on March 14th, 2025, and it is believed that this Mercury retrograde is occurring in Aries at 14 degrees, and this is considered somewhat of the shadow period that really affects us in some places of a whole. And what's interesting when I look at this Mercury retrograde is we do have a lot of movement around Aries, and we also do have a lot of movement around not just Aries, but also the energy of moving as towards communication with the relationships. So not only currently do we have Mercury in Aries at 9 degrees, but we also have Venus in Aries at 7 degrees. So I feel like some of us are really going to learn about certain situations in our relationships and also certain situations as an individual. We also have Chiron in Aries at 21 degrees, and this is me going off of my current charts of here and now that is occurring right now today on March 14th at 6 a.m. And I am located in California. So this is all tropical astrology for anybody who is like, oh, that's not what my chart says. Well, your chart is aligned in a different location, most likely. So on March 24th, we're also going to have a conjunction known as a cazimi, where Mercury conjuncts with the sun, offering a moment of clarity from this confusion that we may have been feeling or seeing. And a cazimi is really known as like this extra energetic kiss or this extra energetic movement that really will be centered around the mind, because we are looking at Mercury retrograde in Aries, but it will also be centered around the areas of communication, because it's all about Mercury and the sun. Where versus if this was an energy with Venus, it would feel a little bit different. It would be more centered around relationships, but this is more allowed in the energies of clarity. Also on April 7th is when Mercury stations direct at 0 degrees in Aries, but there's definitely an expected area of shadow that will kind of take forward, even though it feels like so, oh, really, we're still in the shadow state. But we have to remember that we are in his eclipse season, we are in our shadow mode, we are in our area of movement where everything does feel a little bit shadowy and it does feel a little bit reflective. So of course, when we are thinking about who is going to be affected the most, let's talk about it. And yes, we're all going to be affected in certain different ways, because Mercury retrograde is Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde never really goes away. I mean, it just changes. It's here. And what's interesting is I don't fear Mercury retrograde, because I am so aware of Mercury retrograde being a moment that has occurred for many times, many movements. It's nothing new. We've been dealing with this for decades. But Mercury retrograde is also asking us to slow down in certain situations, and that's important for certain individuals. And these individuals include, of course, the Aries placements. So if you are an Aries sun, moon, rising, or even an Aries Mercury, really see how this could be affecting you and allowing you to learn and allowing you to kind of reflect on certain decisions that you make. And another one, these cardinal signs are back with some energy of movement that they might feel is a little bit intense, and they might feel that it has an energy that feels a little bit like a battle, a little bit like a movement, a little bit like a new area of life. And the cardinal signs include the Aries, the Cancers, the Libra, and of course the Capricorn. So we have to remember that they might have some areas of movement that really feels like a new situation to reevaluate. So definitely look at your chart, see where this energy lies. Also for the fire signs, we have to remember that Aries is a fire sign. So this could have some movement around the Leo, and the Sagittarius may struggle with some impulsive energy as their sister sign is kind of being, or you could say brother sign, since it's a masculine energy, is kind of feeling a little beat up or a little bit, untuned into their energy of interpersonal space and their energy and some of the reflection and their energy of some of the choices that they make. And then, of course, we have to remember that the energy of Mercury is the ruler of the zodiacs, Virgo and Gemini. And of course, Mercury exhalates, meaning it feels quite nice in Aquarius. So those zodiacs might be wanting to pay attention to where is it that their Aries placement is in their chart. What is their Mercury, I guess you could say, Mercury ruler? Where's that at, right? Are they a Mercury in Aquarius? Are they a Mercury in Virgo? And kind of take some time to look at that in their chart. So how do we navigate this? How do we move through this? How do we work with this? Like, what do we do with this? Well, obviously, since it is happening in Aries, we're definitely going to want to pause, take some time to reflect, and make sure that's really something that us as an individual wants to do. The Aries has an energy that can be very reactive and spontaneous. So this is definitely a time that we are going to want to pause before we put on all our caps and send that email, or pause before we put on all the caps and send that text message. We're definitely going to want to double check things, and we're especially going to want to be a little bit more centered in what it is that we are saying, especially if we're fired up. Honey, if we're fired up, we're not going to want to go all kooky shit bananas on individuals. Fuck, they're already scared of us as it is. So definitely double check what you're doing when it comes to decisions and communications that could be affecting you in your energy of identity. Also, for us, we're going to want to look at areas that involve certain contracts, okay? Certain contracts that feel very destined in us and changing certain matters with us for a long haul. Would I be going out and getting my boobs and booty done on Mercury Retrograde in Aries? Why, quite not, honey. I absolutely would not be getting my ass cheeks done during Mercury Retrograde in Aries. I have a feeling I will come out with some lip fillers that make me look like a fish. And some booty that makes me look like an ant. Like, dude. Definitely hold out on that plastic surgery. I would definitely not have plastic surgery on my to-do list during the Mercury retrograde in Aries. That is some shit of your identity that will be very hard to change. Can you go out and get your hair done? Sure. Can you get some highlights in there? Sure. But definitely be a little cautious before you make those big rational decisions. What will not just change you in some ways, but also your appearance. Also, travel plans. We have to remember that traveling has definitely been making a lot of us feel uneasy. So definitely look at those travel plans. Look at how those travel plans can affect you. Is this the time to pack all your bags and to really decide to create a whole new persona, create a whole new life? I mean, depending on the situations, maybe, but for the most part, make sure you really think it through before you make those major decisions. Also, we're going to want to look at how it is that we are ruled in our own space around physical activity and also exercise. So when I think of the Aries, I really think about the energy of, like, I guess you could say, the authentic nature of here, now, and the beauty of movement and also communication. And sometimes exercise and working out and feeling fit really helps us and benefits. But this is also a time where our mind could be kind of playing like tricks on us, where we'll feel like, oh God, do I have to? I don't want to. I don't want to like do all these things to make me feel better. I don't want to do all these things to make me look better. But we're going to definitely also like see that energy of revisiting certain situations that kind of had affected us in our past. And we're going to want to like I guess you could say like revisit that and also turn it into a new energy. So if you've been feeling like a little bit down on yourself, or if you've been feeling like your plans or your goals just haven't really been centered, try to get a little bit of physical activity, blood flow go into the brain, because definitely with Mercury retrograde in Aries, the blood flow to the brain is very important, because the Aries is a go-getter, and the Aries is also ruled the ruler of the mind, and Mercury retrograde with Mercury really affects the mind in some areas. We have to remember that's our decisions, and if we don't have blood flow and we don't have movement going to the brain, some of our decisions can really be convoluted and really just obstruct and very seen and observed in ways that don't feel aligned in our actual personal space. So please do try to get that body moving, even if you feel like you can't. And remember, Mercury retrograde only occurs 3 to 4 times a year, and it's basically where the planet appears to be moving at a slower speed and almost like backwards, as one would say, from the sky's perspective from Earth. So these definitely do bring disruption, and the disruption that we might see on a widespread area doesn't mean that it has to affect us interpersonally. So there's going to be some global communication disruptions. We expect that social media platforms may be crashing. Also, I feel like there might be a big crash with some energies around communication, and also temporary outages. A lot of technical glitches with Mercury retrograde, transportation challenges, like we haven't been having enough since Uranus has been with Taurus. But I also feel like there might be some more transportation, maybe not necessarily a plane this time, but something with transportation. If it could be the railroads, if it could be like cars, if it could be something that really is influenced by transportation. So that's something that's kind of like the reoccurring theme with a lot of Mercury retrogrades. I also do think that there's going to be a lot of political shifts and a lot of political movement with both world leaders and also people who are, I guess you could say, in that atmosphere of world politics, US politics, and different energies of politics. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of strains, a lot of hardships, and a lot of internal relationships really kind of getting some miscommunication from each other, because they are working with this Mercury retrograde energy that feels very disruptive and very almost like volatile in some energies. And we've also have already been seeing it. We've been seeing like the tariffs with Canada. We've been seeing Trump making a lot of big decisions that aren't only affecting us here on US soil, but also affecting people in other nations. So I think there's definitely going to be some potential where it suggests that individuals will have a lot of things that will be affecting them in certain situations as a whole, but also affecting the collective as well. And Mercury retrograde, we have to remember, is an energy that will occur regardless what we do, right? Regardless of the situations that we decide to experience, decide to focus on. It's something that occurs all the time. We shouldn't live in complete, I guess you could say, fear or compromising some of our decisions because of Mercury retrograde, but we definitely should take time to just breathe and allow the movement to occur and allow the movement to happen, and double check our communication, double check our interpersonal space, exercise, get that movement flow into the brain, get that blood flow going, and just be mindful of our decisions, especially if they are feeling very impulsive. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. Please let me know, how are you planning on going through this Mercury retrograde? What are some of the situations that you plan on doing or not doing? And everybody have an amazing day. Bye. And don't forget to share this with your witchy bestie. Also, if you would like to learn more about Mercury, you could check out the Astrology series on the YouTube channel, which has a podcast all dedicated to the planet Mercury. And everybody have an amazing day. Bye.